So what is the Freehold Area Health Department doing with the podcast? We want to share with you the amazing work that local health departments do while sharing some of the outrageous true stories regarding the antics of our daily work. We're changing up the host, the guests, and the topics because we want to keep it fun and interesting. Let's learn what Freehold Area Health Department does. Hi, my name is Margy Jahn. I'm the health officer here at the Freehold Area Health Department. I like to go by Margy, that's with a hard G sound. Today's episode is Food Inspections, Imagining the Unthinkable. Today, I have a guest. Our guest is one of our health inspectors, Jessica Habeck. Hello. Welcome. I'm here. Hello. And we're going to talk today a little bit about restaurant inspections. So probably hearing some things you didn't know and probably some things you don't want to know because we have some pretty crazy things to share with you today. So Jessica, just to start, to give our audience a little bit of idea, can you tell us a little bit about what do you do in health inspections?
So we do so much as health inspectors, but a big part of our work is, every year, we're required to go out and inspect every restaurant within our jurisdiction just to make sure that they are, operating in a safe way, that, the food that you're eating isn't going to kill you. And, we check back with them if they're not doing so good. We're trying to foster, a relationship with our local businesses so that we can help them improve and help keep our community safe. So, we're checking for temperatures, we're checking for, making sure that people are washing their hands. God forbid, you think you don't have to make someone wash their hands, but you do. So, we're just there as, oversight to see, to make sure that the food that you're eating is food that you want to be eating.
So you say you're safe, but isn't like the big thing about cockroaches, isn't that a big issue?
Yeah, unfortunately, and the thing with cockroaches is like, anytime, I hate to say it, but anytime you're dealing with food in mass quantities, you're going to have pests. But it's about being able to mitigate those or control them. I'm talking fancy words, but, control those, not so great aspects of mass food production and, food for the public in a way that's, maintaining it so that it's not going to wind up in your food. You can't stop it altogether, but you can do things to make it a safer place. Cockroaches are gross, but they also can cause allergies. They can spread disease. Am I talking too much?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Does anyone ever complained about getting a cockroach in their food?
Oh, yes. One of my favorites was we actually got a call from a resident that was at one of our restaurants, and a lot of the times when people call us, they're, saying all this outlandish stuff, and you're like, okay. She's like, no, I have pictures of an actual cockroach in my food, and I'm sending it to you. And we're like, yeah, okay. Like, we'll look into it. We believe you, but a cockroach in your food, like, that is pretty bad. Like, a cockroach scurrying across the kitchen is one thing. Cockroach in your food, she sends us this picture right on her plate, fancy restaurant, cockroach. And you could see its little legs. And wow, that was traumatizing.
I heard a story about a deep fried cockroach. So, and actually, I should say I heard that story. Actually, the story happened
to me.
You lived
that story.
I lived that story. I don't, but, literally we had ordered some fried chicken for my son because he would only eat the fried chicken. And when we picked it up, there was a deep fried cockroach stuck to the chicken leg. And it was disgusting. So
was it breaded?
It does happen. It was. I don't know if it was breaded, but we can. So, what else? So, when you say temperatures, give me an example of something that happens with temperatures.
So, not to get too, into the nitty gritty of exactly what we do, but every food is, if a food is hot, there's a certain temperature it's supposed to be kept at. If a food is raw, like if you're dealing with raw meat and it needs to be held at a cold temperature, like supposed to be 41 degrees or lower, ideally lower. So when you walk into a food establishment and you see like an open air unit that has food storage next to the grill, and you see raw chicken in one row, and then you see like cooked steak in the other, but it's on the same unit, as an inspector, you're like, what's that about? So one time I saw that, and I asked the lady who was working at this fine establishment, and I said, is this for refrigeration or for hot food? And she said, both. And as she's saying it, I'm watching a tray of like 100 tacos walking out of the kitchen with the steak and the chicken, and I'm like, no. And I didn't want to look like a crazy person, but that was when she said both to me. Just an FYI for anybody who's going to a restaurant and you see raw meat stored in the same unit as cooked meat, you're not supposed to be doing hot food and cold food on the same. Both is not a right answer.
Right.
It's not for cold and hot at the same time. Not a thing.
That's right. So I guess what you're saying is that food temperatures are important.
Super important.
And with all, I used to be a health inspector before I was the health officer. So I have a few stories myself. And people don't understand the whole time temperature idea, and that you really don't want your food to be too warm or at room temperature for too long of a time.
No.
And I did an inspection years ago and went in, and it was I guess they had been cooking overnight. I was maybe there at late morning, early afternoon,
cooking overnight.
And they had done massive amounts of meatloaf and massive amounts of chicken. And they had two, how they store the foods on the trays on those large carts so they can have. And I came in, and there was a whole cart of meatloaf, and there was a whole cart of chicken, right? And I went and stuck my little thermometer into the probe, but they were at 72 degrees.
And again,
and that's coming from the oven out to sit at room temperature. It was 72 degrees. Unfortunately, we had to ask them to get rid of them. So that's part of our work, right?
And what time was that inspection being done?
Late
in the morning. So yeah, that was probably out there all night.
Exactly.
In the kitchen.
No, I knew it was, right? So, but one of the things we need to do is then we need to ask them to take that food and destroy it, because we don't want you all eating that food. So it's really important for us and for the owners to understand, or the kitchen managers to understand, that time and temperature is very important. We just can't let food sit out for long periods of time.
Funny that you mentioned the destroying the food, because that's a fun one. You want to say that, like, oh, you need to get rid of that. Okay, please get rid of that. Well, I know that you know all about this because you were around when this was happening, but we used to have a wonderful inspector, Julie. She went to a place and made them throw away food, and
it was eggs. It was eggs.
It was eggs? I thought it was like meat.
No, she was asking to do eggs, and so he took and went and put them out
in the dumpster in the back of the building. So again, we're not even in an indoor trash can. We're now outside in a dumpster that's used by multiple businesses. So can't even get into that cross-contamination. But she had like this weird suspicion that something not so above board was happening, and she drove around the back, and the guy was in the dumpster getting the eggs out of the dumpster and bringing them back into the restaurant. So now, as Margy said, you got to destroy that stuff. We make them pour bleach on it.
Yeah, that's or ask them. It's voluntary.
Yes,
we don't make them. We ask.
Please pour bleach on that. Yes,
right.
There's no force.
No, we're not allowed to, right?
Yes.
That would require an injunction. We'd have to go to the judge for that. But, fortunately, most of the time they understand. And we spend a lot of our time actually trying to educate people about why.
Yeah, we're not trying to make enemies with our local business. Like we almost want to have like a partnership with them. It's fostering that trust, because we want them to also report to us if there's something wrong.
Right. So, and sometimes too, I think of one of the funny stories I had was in this inspection that I was doing, and it was a long inspection because there were so many. At that time, we were handwriting, and we do all of our inspections now are digital, but we were handwriting the inspections, and I was up to 8, 9, 10 pages on this inspection. And
a novel.
Sometimes the lack of awareness of what they had. And this particular establishment, and this was years ago, I was going in, and I go into the walk-in freezer. And usually they have storages. Anybody who's familiar with kitchens, they have big walk-in refrigerators, walk-in freezers, and there were storage shelves that's supposed to store the food on. And when I walked into this particular freezer, which was a large large freezer, there was no food on the shelves. All the food, I kid you not, was in a pile, probably about 3 feet high in the middle of the
It's like Oscar the Grouch's refrigerator.
And I'm looking at that. And by then I told you it was like an 8, 9, 10 pages. And I just looked at it and I couldn't believe my eyes that this was literally their freezer storage was a pile of food.
When there are shelves in the freezer?
Yeah. No, it was amazing. And I saw this huge fin that was, hanging out of this pile, like a fish fin, like a large fin. And I looked at the owner and as he's walking around with me and I go, "What is that?" And he proceeds to bend over, grab the swordfish by the tail. He starts yanking it, like literally.
God, I hope he didn't stab himself.
Wait, but it's the tail, and he pulls it out, and he brings it out, he brings it around, and he slams it on top of the pile. And I goes, "It's a swordfish."
An entire swordfish.
It was an entire swordfish, fins and everything. I kid you not.
And in that situation, I know we talk about education, and trying to, work with these places. But in that type of scenario, what do you do? You're just standing there and
I giggled.
What was their explanation?
I started laughing. I could not stop laughing. I just could not believe what I was looking at.
And you're like, and then you're probably thinking, did I eat here recently?
No, I never ate there.
Did I ever order the swordfish here?
I think that's one of the key things about working is that you know which restaurants to eat in and which ones not.
I have to say, it's nice to have the inside scoop, right?
And we do. And as a matter of fact, we're soon, our health department is soon going to be posting all of our our conditional satisfactories. In fact, Jessica, why don't you tell us a little bit about the conditional and satisfactory postings and what people should look for?
No problem. So basically, this episode might scare some of you listening. We don't want you to be afraid to go out to restaurants and eat because I got to tell you, I inspect them and I love going to restaurants. And I know some of them are probably not so great, but it's good to pay attention.
It is good to pay attention. I'm going to interrupt you only because I want to say that's why you need us, right? That's why we're here, is because we're telling you these stories that seem a little bit outrageous. But can you imagine if no one was out there looking at how restaurants were behaving and making sure they're following the regulations according to keep us all safe from getting sick?
Yes, behind every safe restaurant is an inspector screaming, "No!" But basically, so again, don't be afraid to go out to restaurants. Just pay attention to your surroundings. When you walk into a restaurant, you should be able to locate. It's just a piece of paper. Well, it's not just a piece of paper. We get nice paper for our placards, but there's a sign. It'll say satisfactory, and it'll have an inspector's name, their signature, the date they were there, Freehold Area Health Department, or, whatever town you're in. And that's how you know that restaurant has passed its inspection. If you walk in and you don't see anything, maybe you should be thinking a little bit. Or if you walk in and you see a big yellow sign that says conditionally satisfactory, you might be having some full swordfish on the floor in a walk-in or, refrigerated foods next to cooked foods, both. It's both. Or, dumpster diving.
Well, I was just going to say, so what makes an inspector put a restaurant on conditional?
So a lot of different things. But, it's for me personally, by law, if certain things are out, we have to address them.
So if I come in,
if I go in and something's supposed to be 41 degrees and I temp it and which happened to one of our inspectors this week, it's 80 degrees.
I didn't hear that story.
Well, you'll hear that one later. And it's 80 degrees. You're like, that's a problem. That to me, it's I don't even need to look at what else is going on. We have an issue here. You are getting a conditional. And also a lot of times I've walked into places and you can just tell from the second you walk in that nobody there has any understanding of any food safety. And I always tell my restaurants that fail, and I'm trying to improve them. I'm not trying to, be mean to them. I'm not trying to, shame them. But I'm an excuse we always get is, oh, well, the manager's not here.
Yeah.
The manager just shouldn't have to be there, or the owner shouldn't have to be there for a restaurant to pass its inspection. So, we're looking for food safety understanding. Not everybody has to be officially trained, but that training that the managers have should trickle down to the employees. An employee should know that they should wash their hands when returning to food prep. An employee should know that if I'm grabbing raw chicken and putting it on the grill, I shouldn't be wearing the same gloves and then making someone's, Cobb salad. So, temperature is big for us. Food handling is big for us. We want people to understand that the gloves aren't there to protect your hands. It's there to protect the food integrity.
So they're actually a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Because I think people don't recognize. I mean, they understand.
Well, again, they're like, ew, gross, raw chicken.
Right.
But like, no, it's not about, it's like, ew,
you're serving.
Gross, raw chicken now on my salad. So, there are a lot of, and, to get into the nitty gritty of being an inspector would be an entire podcast in itself, just for food inspections. But, we're looking to make sure that there is a basic understanding and that everyone on staff should have that. We can't, and that you're checking. I'll go in, I'll temp something, it'll be 65 degrees. And if I ask you questions like, hey, were you opening up this drawer back and forth? I know it's across from the grill, like maybe and like you opening and closing it, but sometimes I'll ask them and they're like, oh, really? What's the temperature supposed to be? That's a problem. That's a conditional.
Yeah. I see. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So yeah, we got on a tangent about all the horrific experiences we've had. But you had mentioned previously that we are going to start posting the, not every restaurant, like if they pass, we're not going to post that, but any restaurant that does not, quote unquote, pass our inspection, gets a conditionally satisfactory, we are going to start posting on our website. So that's freeholdsareahealthdepartment.org or .nj.us.
I don't know. What is our website?
freeholdhealth.org. Okay. So coming soon to a local health department website near you, freeholdhealth.org. We are going to start posting any conditionally satisfactory establishments that we have. And I guess on the rare chance that we have an unsatisfactory, which would mean we have shut that restaurant down. So coming soon.
Okay. All right. Well, just in closing, Jessica, I want to thank you for being our first guest for our first episode.
It was a pleasure.
It was fun discussing, and
I was nervous, but I
know that we will have you back soon. And I want to thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our podcast today. We're hopefully going to have another one coming up very soon. We're working on it as we speak. And I thank you for joining us. And hey, what the health? Please join us soon.